In this tutorial, we'll see how to control the frequency of an oscillator with a knob we can turn. We know that P5JS knows how to make oscillators. We've seen that in previous tutorials. It does not have a built-in way to make turning knobs. So we'll need to add some code to give it this capability. So in our resources, there's a link down here to WebSynth files for knobs and pads download. So we're going to click that and download it, and it will give us a folder, folder on stuff at WebSynth parts. Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and open up my processing and make a new sketch. So we've done this before, and I want to make sure I'm in P5JS. Okay. I'm going to make sure that I remember to add my sound library, and then I'm going to go ahead and save my file, and I'll call it OSC knob, and I'll save it on my desktop and save it. So there it is, and now I need to put my WebSynth parts into that folder. So I don't want them in a subfolder, so I'm going to just select all of my parts and try to drag them into my folder. Close that. Oops. Put that back. All right, so when I refresh that, so I could close it, open it again, whatever, once I get it refreshed, it adds these other files. So these are the things that we had in our folder. This is the code that tells it how to make a turning knob, and we're not going to use the pads right now, but we're basically adding functionality to P5JS. So in our file here, we want to go ahead and we'll do this real quick. Make an oscillator. So we're going to do VAR, OSC, and we're going to also mess with the frequency, so we'll make up a variable and we'll call it freak. And we need a canvas, so create canvas, we give it a size, and we'll go ahead and make our oscillator. Let's see, equal new P5 dot oscillator. And when we do this, we can do it two ways, and more than two ways, but in this case, let's just put the type of oscillator right in our creator constructor function. We could also use OSC.setType, which we did in previous tutorial, and let's set its frequency, and I'm just going to give it a default frequency, which will be overridden by the knob that we're going to create. And then let's give it an amplitude so we can actually hear it. Again, that's a number between 0 and 1. 0 is off, 1 is full volume. And restart. So save that. I could play this now and it would play my oscillator. I'm not going to do that. But because we've got this knob maker function or constructor, let's make a new knob. So we'll put it in a variable and we'll call it freak knob. So we declare these variables outside of our setup and draw functions so that they have scope, they have value inside of the functions. And to make a new one, it's the same process for making an oscillator. Only we're using our knob maker function. If we look at it, and we scroll down a little bit, we'll see the name of the function is make knob. By tradition, we capitalize constructor functions like that. So we're going to say freak knob equal new And we don't need the P5 on there for this because it's not part of P5. So, new make knob. And the make knob function, if we looked at just definition, it wants a bunch of information because the knobs can do different things depending on what we're using them for. So make that a little bigger. The first thing it wants to know is the graphic we want to use for the knob. And so if I look in my folder, I've got two of them here. I've got a ping and an SVG. We'll use the ping, and it's called knob, MF, Mogfest, PNG. So that's the name. F.PNG. That needs to be in quotes, and it also needs to be spelled right. The next thing it wants to know is the size of the knob. So we'll do, this is in pixels. And then it wants to know, and this is documented in the knob maker function right up at the top, what these various numbers it wants are. We'll talk about that more, but it wants to know where to put it on the canvas on our web page. So let's put it, the first number is how far from the left edge, so I'll put it 50, and the second, actually I'll put it 100. And I'll put it 100 down. So that's the vertical space. So that's the file. Okay. Then it wants to know the range of numbers that I want the knob to return. So this is frequency. So I don't want no point in going lower than I can hear, and my computer doesn't put out really low numbers. So I'll go from 40 to 1400. So this is in hertz. I don't have to put that. In fact, I shouldn't put that. Just numbers is all it wants. Okay. Then it wants to know the default setting for the knob. And we'll start it turned all the way to the left, so we'll put it at 40. The reason we want to be able to do the default is because some types of knobs, like a panning knob, goes from -1 to 1. I don't want it to start out at -1. I want it to start out in the middle, so the default I would put in would be 0, for instance. And another number here, I'll just put something in. It's the number of decimal places in the displayed value. If I didn't do this, I could get a number like 45.77932845 or something, like way too many decimal places. So I'm going to round it off to 2 decimal places. And the last thing it wants is the name that I want displayed under the knob. And again, that's going to be a text value or a string, so I put it in quotes, and I'll call it frequency. So those are the bits of information that we need to make a knob. And then let's set this extra space. Okay, so to actually display the knob, we need to put it on the canvas, and I gave it a variable name, so freak knob dot update. So update is simply the function name I've given, or method I've given the make knob function to display the knob on the screen. And we need to do 2 more things to implement our knob, and that is we need to have it respond to the mouse. So I'll put in a function for mouse pressed. And notice that goes outside of the draw loop. It's independent of that. I want it to happen whenever I press the mouse. And for this, I gave it a knob active. So if it's active, if I pressed on it and it's active, it does something. And a little more space here. We also need to react to the mouse being released. And that one's called freak knob. inactive. And help if I spelled it right. And save that. All right, so the last thing we need to do, if I run this now, it should be there, but it's not going to be doing anything because we haven't made the knob do anything to the oscillator. They're there, but they don't know about each other. So we need to tell the oscillator to set its frequency to freak. And before we do that, we need to set the value of freak equal to the freak knob dot knob value. Okay. So the freak knob value is a value returned by the knob depending on how far it's rotated between 40 and 1400. So this is just a name I made up inside of this function, and we'll look at the function in more detail in another tutorial, but I'll save this and run it. And sometimes you get these weird messages, and it's a quirk of the environment we're coding in. It's not happy with me because Safari was open, and so I closed Safari and tried running it again, and now it's happy. Not quite happy. So that's a good point to go under develop. I'll go down to my JavaScript console and see if I've got any errors. Right, and it can't find the variable create canvas. Not a big surprise there. So I'm going to quit this again so it doesn't. Create canvas isn't a function. I left the E out of create. Save it again and run it. Right, so there it is. I have to see why my text looks funky here, but when it's all the way down, it's actually still making sound. It's just my crappy speakers in my laptop don't really respond to a frequency that low. So I have to look at that and see what I did wrong there. But that's basically it. In the next tutorial, we'll see, we'll take this same thing and I'll fix the display thing there, and we'll see how we can add a volume knob to the same thing.